flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's been so long since we've been together, I'm not sure where we were with the mission statement, so I'm just gonna start over with Mr. King again, with the mission statement.
Through the combined efforts of the students, staff, parents, and community members, our mission is to foster the confidence, knowledge, cognition, and character necessary to instill a strong work ethic, create an environment of tolerance and respect, to ignite an attitude of inquiry and enthusiasm for learning that will enable students to become productive, responsible citizens.
Thank you. Motion to accept the agenda. Motion Mrs. Jerry, second Mr. King, all in favor? So moved. I did not receive a BOCES representative report at this time, so there is none. I'm anxious to hear the budget presentation, so I'm not going to make any president's messages. If something comes to mind, I'll mention it later. So with that, Dr. Shulman.
All right, so it's probably going to be a duet to a degree. Lisa's going to chime in where needed. This is the first of our work sessions for the 21-22 budget, and given the number of variables still unknown, it's probably one of the most challenging budgets we've ever had to put together. Our budget serves to do a few things: move our educational program forward, support our students, our staff, and our facility, and to maintain our commitment to be good stewards of the taxpayers' monies. So when you think of the critical factors that are impacting the budget process, people tend to think that the 2% tax cap means that no taxes can go up beyond 2%. And that isn't true. There is no floor. So there's no predictability with the current tax cap formula. So with the addition of the tax cap, we were supposed to also see relief in the number of mandates. That was to give to get. And that, of course, did not happen. Our foundation aid remains frozen from 2008-2009. And in fact, our aid has only increased 1% from 08-09 to next school year. So in the 13 years that we're discussing, we've only had our state aid increase 1%. And it's far less than the 2% that we were promised every year to hold harmless. Certainly these have been trying times, but given the current climate, we must plan for the worst. The governor built his budget on hope for a federal bailout, but with no guarantees. Our budget last year did not take into consideration the length and the gravity of the pandemic response. PPE, screening, virtual learning, just some of the added financial costs associated with the pandemic. As we look to the future, academic and emotional support must be in our plan as we think and move towards whatever new normal is. At this point, we do not have any indication of what school will look like in September. So when you think of the internal factors that impact our budget, although our combined wealth ratio, and that's a combination of our property wealth and income wealth, it puts this district as the second wealthiest in our BOCES. We know that this does not certainly reflect our student demographics. In the last 10 years, we've seen our free and reduced lunch ratio go from roughly 24% to nearly 50%. That tells us that more and more of our students are coming to school with different educational needs, social needs, and we've been responsive to those. This year, our instructional program had to provide for remote instruction for our elementary students, and it had to address a large increase in the number of English as new language learners that moved into our district. Our annual audit speaks to our longstanding adherence to conservative accounting practices that take our responsibilities to the short and long-term fiscal health of our district into consideration. Staffing this year was adjusted. Staff came out of our intervention, STEM, and library classes to make our class sizes small to accommodate the social distance requirements, and we're certainly grateful for the teachers who did that. We had to lay off some of our teaching assistants, and during the winter, we furloughed some of our staff. We are about to begin a previously approved capital project that will provide a new playground, a new sign, handicap-accessible aluminum bleachers, and the ability to section off the building, allowing limited access during evening and weekend events, as well as provide an added measure of security in the event of a lockdown. State aid reimbursement continues to be an issue. The governor consolidated our expense-driven aids into one service aid block and capped those reimbursements. In addition, due to the decision to no longer lease our buses, we do not have the expenditure this year, but we also lose the aid we receive for our bus purchases. So when you think about our fixed costs that impact our budget, certainly contractual is probably the biggest area. Includes salaries, health insurance increases, and retirement. Maintaining our educational program is another priority that drives our budget. This budget proposal does not add to our program, but maintains what we currently have. As a small district, we are dependent on BOCES for a lot of our educational and administrative needs. We have a number of itinerant teachers and service providers that help us to provide instruction, and but also provide services such as speech, PT, and OT. And even though our placement as a target district and comprehensive support and improvement school is, in my opinion, unnecessary, regardless, there are costs associated with this identification, such as curriculum specialists and data analysis, as just 2 examples. So then when you look at our budget, what's value added? What are the things that are in there that are really considered extra, that we traditionally put in there because we've made that commitment? Because we've made a commitment to provide that quality program. That includes electives. So from AP classes to dual credit, to statistics, to sign language, these electives round out the education for our students, allowing them to pursue varied interests. An extracurricular program is, some would say, equally important to add to the educational experiences of our students. From the musical to student council to class officers, our students are involved in a number of programs beyond the school day. Athletics, which is another important part of our program, also provides our students the ability to learn the importance of working as a team, of healthy competition, and making a commitment to something bigger. And while we take transportation for granted, this district and the voters many years ago made a commitment to provide transportation that is more generous than the state mandate. By law, students in grades K through 8 can walk up to 2 miles to school, and students in grades 9 through 12 can walk up to 3 miles to school. Our policy allows for our kindergarten through 3rd grade students to receive door-to-door transportation regardless of distance. And our grades 4 through 6 students receive transportation to the nearest intersection or bus stop, again, regardless of distance. Students in grades 7 through 12 may ride the bus if their home is more than a mile from school. These 4 areas, electives, extracurricular, sports, and transportation, is a large way that this budget reflects our priorities. So in summary, our budget this year was $15,055,005. Our proposed budget for next year is $15,495,435. A budget-to-budget increase of approximately almost 3%, so 2.93% or $440,000. The money from our projected state aid, $5,587,015. Our allowable tax levy limit, so the amount we're able to bring in, is $8,117,286. Our cap this year is 1.22%. And again, when we keep talking about having a floor of at least keeping the tax cap at 2%, this is why. Because truthfully, easily our cap could have been under 0. So this was really a lot of hard work on Lisa's part to make sure that that didn't happen. So I know you have the budget details, the paperwork that kind of goes with it. So I'm going to kind of throw it out for questions. Do you have questions for Lisa now?
I just want to make a comment that it was looks like a lot of thought went into that. I respect the fact that you said we have to utilize BOCES because of us being a smaller district. Are there other ways in distance learning that can still give our students the things that they need, the extra dual credits, any AP, anything being offered that would continue to maximize the use of those things?
So not so much distance learning. I know Mrs. Facci had a meeting recently with the high school principals and the administrators of BOCES around distance learning. The Madison Oneida BOCES, however, is starting to look at a course catalog that'll be online. And so could be another area for us when we have 1 or 2 students who want to take a particular AP course. it could be a way for them to take that course.
Okay, how about partnerships with the college? Are we maximizing the use of those?
Right now, I think we are, but this has been kind of an odd year, so there hasn't been a lot on campus for any of our students.
Right, I just didn't know if they were able to participate in some of the
Yes,
the other
yes,
things there.
Not this year.
So the other thing that I wanted to ask is, you said transportation, and having been on the policy committee before, I believe, and Mr. King, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe you were on at the time. Did we change that policy? I don't ever recall seeing that being changed.
It is part of the policy. I'd have to look and see if those numbers that we do are, but I believe it is
That's
exactly.
not the numbers we put up to the voters.
I think, and the question gets to be whether or not we want to give more than the state mandates.
No, you're not following me. We did give more than the state mandate.
Right.
Okay? But there were parameters. It was not every child 4 through 6. I believe it was a half a mile.
I'd have to look at the actual policy, but I believe that that's what the policy reads now.
Okay, but that was, you will concur that it was not what was put up to the voters.
I would have to go back and look at that as well, but it sounds like, I don't recall the way you do.
Oh, that's fine. You know, I just know that there's a little bit of discrepancy into what I believed it was currently into what Dr. verified that it is. And if that's the case, then there's a little bit of misunderstanding with that. And I think maybe what I can do is tap into Mrs. Roblicki and recall her remembrance of that
Yeah.
as she worked.
We'd have to, I mean,
Thoroughly on
obviously
that.
it was a resolution that we asked the voters about, I'm gonna say 12 years ago, because it was the first time I ran for board.
Less than that, I think it was during my second term,
Yeah,
because Janet had been policy chair by then.
I have to go back and look at the actual resolution, but I don't have that, obviously, from that long ago.
I can have Stephanie pull
I
the
was just gonna say,
prior resolution.
and we'll look at it next week.
I was gonna say, how soon on the schedule is it for a policy committee? Is that ones that we're gonna be reviewing soon?
I think we went over it recently,
Yeah,
didn't
we did do it recently.
It doesn't make a difference in the grand scheme of things, except for the fact that in the spirit of transparency, what we told our voters at that time versus what we did with our policy.
Right.
And that's through no fault of anybody in this room, because other than myself and Mr. King and Mrs. Stamboli, I don't think anybody else was here when it was put up to the voters.
Jackie, can
Yes.
you just kind of clarify what you think it was and what it was, just because I'm not following the conversation?
Okay, at that time, it was a compromise. There was a lot of discussion about that. What we were doing is we were doing door-to-door pickups, which is very cost prohibitive in a district our size. The law states, as Dr. Put it, that we do not pick up, or we don't have to pick up if a high school student lives more than 3 miles away and an elementary student lives more than a mile, 2 miles away. You do not have to pick them up. Well, because it's an extra incurred cost to the taxpayers, we put it up to the taxpayers. And at that time, the Ferrara firm said it wasn't in perpetuity, but now they've changed their position on that and said you only have to put it up once. But when we were told before, it wasn't in perpetuity and that every so often you had to revisit it when you revisited the policy. So when it was put up, I believe it was put up as pickups at K through 3 at the house, designated stops for students living a half a mile or greater, which still isn't a very big distance comparatively to 2 miles. And that for the high school students, they had
4
to,
through 6, I'm sorry.
was that?
Designated stops for those over a half a mile, 4 through 6?
Yes.
Okay.
And that anyone from 7 through 12 over a mile, which is still, like I said, it's very generous. And I don't believe we changed that. But we could have changed it, but we really shouldn't have without putting it back up. Mr. King.
I'm just looking at the policy, and I called it up, and what the policy says, now maybe different than what the resolution said, but the policy says it exactly the way that Dr. Shelmadine presented it. That the K through 3 will get door-to-door transportation, 4 through 6 shall be provided with transportation to and from their school of legal attendance, and 7 through 12, more than a mile from the school of legal attendance within the boundaries of the district. The routing of the buses and the pickup locations to be reviewed annually by the superintendent or his or her designee, which shall be established in accordance with applicable law and regulation. And there's more there, but that covers.
Right.
So the question you have, which is, right now, what's being presented to us tonight follows the policy. Your question is whether or not the policy overshoots what we originally voted on.
Right, it could be only just because there was no distance marker put in there, and I believe that there was at one point. I believe there was a half a mile.
So the 4
designation.
through 6 is the only thing that's really big. 4 through 6 is where the question mark is.
I believe
Is that
so,
what I'm understanding?
yeah, and I want to make sure, I'm not trying to be nitpicky, I want to make sure that the policy fits the procedures that are occurring. That a policy is only as good as the people enforcing it.
Right.
So making sure that the policy is fitting the procedure. And if we have designated stops, those designated stops are being used. And if somebody lives closer than 1 mile, we're not taking shortcuts and dropping them off in between because it doesn't follow the policy. Otherwise, put it back up and rewrite the policy.
Okay.
Mrs.
Well,
Hubbard?
I just want to say, I remember this coming up maybe within the last 5 years or so, because I know I know when thinking of my son, that it changed right around the time he was going to be going to a bus stop. So I guess, well, no, it had to be more than that, maybe 10 years ago, that it came up and it was changed at the point where now there was more bus stops because a lot of the kids were still being picked up at home, dropped off at home and picked up at home. So I'd be curious to see what that was, because I know it's come up over the last several years that there was things being done that didn't meet the policies, and so I'd like to try to get that all, I agree with Jackie that we need to get that situated so everything matches.
Thank you. But, so I digress. Let me get back to the budget. Does anyone have any questions on this budget? Michelle?
I was wondering, just looking at the board expenses, last year we did a really great job as a board to kind of decrease what we had our part of the expenses. My question is, the BOCES services seems to go up quite substantially, so I was curious what that was.
It was under budgeted for board docs,
Okay,
so I took the budget to what you would actually be spending for Stephanie to have as a board clerk, to have some kind of record keeping for the board documents. It was not, board docs was not, it missed the last budget cycle, so that's what you're seeing there. The other pieces that you're seeing decrease are where you're no longer in NISBA participation.
is there any decrease in conference fees that we need? Do we still need the 8,000, or do we feel like that's low to go? I just don't.
Those are for whenever you're renting out a space.
Yeah, so it's gonna be for retreats.
Yeah.
It's certainly for rural schools.
Yeah.
Okay, so it kind of encompasses all of that.
Okay.
And it's hoping that rural schools has their maybe they'll have their conference this year, and you certainly want the ability to go to the rural schools conference, only because if you've never been to a rural schools conference, they're very well done. They're much more informative than the NISBA. There's no chance that you're going to get shut out of a session that you want. And you really have more of a personal added touch. And I know, I thought, Kristen, you've attended rural
No,
schools?
her and I were supposed to go last year, but it got, instead of, in lieu of going to the big NISBA one, we decided to give, but then it got canceled because of
But
COVID.
But if you get the opportunity and it opens back up, you certainly don't want to not have the
Right.
ability to do
And
that.
we
I
wanted to leave that in there just in case.
Yeah,
You and I went to that one on
we went to one of them, the school
pre-meeting,
safety.
school safety.
Yeah, we did the pre before it
That's 2 or 3
started.
years ago.
Yeah,
Just kind of interject. I think when people hear Rural Schools Association, they think it must be for schools that are in rural settings. And this organization really encompasses small schools, small school districts. And so that's why it's been appropriate for us to be a part of it. I think some people think of that and they think, well, this isn't rural, but
I just want to make sure that our expenses are as low as we possibly can go because again, our mission here is for the kids. So I just want to make sure we are not taking anything out of the budget that could go back to the kids for any reason.
I don't think that there's anything through
Anything
this
more?
budget that is taking away from program.
Perfect. And I just figure if we ever had another cut, we highlight those things that could go if, we
Right.
had to. I would say that our conferences, though learning, they are probably the least of the priority list when it comes to if anything should happen, we need to scramble, even though it's really a few $1,000s. And I think based on what it was 2021 or 2020, I think we've been substantially that numbers have gone down at this
Right.
session.
And you don't want to decimate your training budget for the board, because if you look at it, when you have new people come on, there's going to be the training requirements by law. And then when somebody comes on and you're trying to mentor them or bring them to something, bring them along. So you want to have the ability to do that. Otherwise, you have a board that won't know what they're looking at when they get these folders.
Pages of documents.
I have one more question.
Go ahead.
The section that's instructional supply for each grade, I was just a little like, can you just tell me how we come up with these numbers? Because everybody is so different. I'm assuming some just use more supplies than others, but it just seems to be very,
Those are directly budgeted by the
Substantial.
principals by request.
okay,
So the teachers are directly requesting,
perfect.
and correct me if I'm wrong, Brent, but they're directly requesting what they need for that year. And it does vary. I mean,
Well, I have to give the teachers a lot of credit with these substantial decreases that I see in this section. I mean, most of them are a decrease. So I have to give them credit for cutting where they possibly can.
Do you give them a ceiling? Like, this is how much
We
you.
gave them some.
we gave them a ceiling, but
No,
some
how does-
liked
how
the
much you
ceiling
have,
and
what-
some didn't. So,
No, because
But we understand that there's certain areas that ceiling is going to be exceeded. If you look at a science lab where they need live samples or whatever, their supply budget is going to exceed the $200 ceiling. You try to put, and Brent would attest to this, you try to put that ceiling in, and we gave them a $200 ceiling. And that's for basic supplies. Because we would go in and we'd find dried out pens and dried out sticky notes and everything that had been squirreled away for years and years that they never used. And then there's certain areas that they really do use more. It's basically like your office supplies. We don't ask them for instructional supplies to hold to that 200. And the principals have purview over that. In other words, if Brett knows his STEM teacher needs more in that area, he's gonna put in for it.
Mhm.
So that's kind of how we constructed this budget.
Okay. Mr. King?
I had several questions that I emailed Lisa this morning and she answered, but I just thought that maybe the public would be interested in seeing what my questions were. So, Lisa, online, 1621, 490 for the BOCES. There was, even though we got rid of our BOCES supervisor in the maintenance area, we still have a big number there. So you explained to me what it was for, but maybe everybody else would be curious.
Right. It's for your safety, your asbestos, your fire inspections, your visual inspections. BOCES supervises all of that to make sure that we're in SED compliance. So there's a big decrease in that line because you no longer have your facilities director, but we still subscribe to all of those other, programs that help the maintenance department stay in compliance for everything that is mandated by SED.
And then the next question I had was, actually yours was answered my next question. So my question after that was, 2630, 490, which is BOCES services under computer assisted instruction. That went up quite a bit as well. And what was in that category that we needed to add that much?
That was all of your purchasing for, there was a COSA change through BOCES of how they wanted it accounted for through what was constituted as an SED, ST3 budget. So we moved the expenditures, there's an offset through, I believe it's 1680, which is roughly half of it. And the rest of it is everything that we purchased. So in other words, your Chromebooks, anything that we needed to purchase through BOCES to get us in compliance. It could be anything through your wiring, anything that we need, your tech staff, all of that is budgeted through there.
Okay, and then continuing on in category 2855, 450, 00014 for uniforms, and 5510, 210, 00000 bus purchase, we wiped out both of those things. And I'm wondering if that pushes us off cycle on buying uniforms, keeping us lean there. And also for buses, normally we typically purchase a bus a year on average. And I'm just curious if by eliminating that, we decrease the safety because we have older buses.
I can speak to the buses and then Brett will speak to the uniforms. The buses are usually 2 buses a year. You went off cycle when you stopped the leasing because what happens with the purchasing, the buses have a longer life cycle. So I warned against that because what happens is when you go off that cycle and you're purchasing for cash, you are going to lose your aid because you're not on a normal level cycle. I believe we are not scheduled to purchase buses for another 2 years.
So that would have been off cycle regardless of the budget this year? Okay.
We're off cycle. The minute you went off leasing and you went to purchasing for cash, you went off cycle.
Okay.
So, and Brett can speak to as far as the uniform.
Right. So as far as the cycle goes, yes, we'd have to, I think the idea is to push everything back a year. This is football's year for actually, I think it was last year. And, we've put it off now a couple of years because things have been tight. So in football, uniforms are a big ticket item.
Does that include helmets?
We got to check the date on the helmets. I think we're all right. I think we had a new purchase of helmets a few years back, so you might be okay there.
Yeah, the safety equipment is.
Yeah, those are 10 years. Those are the helmets. They have to be recertified every year, but I believe the lifespan of the helmet is 10 years. So I think that right now the uniforms are, again, really big. And if you are going to replace football uniforms and there's some other things in there, so now you have football uniforms plus whatever was slated for this year, those combined is a hefty number. I'm all about looking good, so if you want to go ahead and do it, I'm on board. But again, I have a boss who wants me to, I won't repeat what she says about me. All matters financial, but again, we're just trying to be conservative and do what's right for not only our kids but also our taxpayers and our other stakeholders. So.
Understandable. And just 2 more statements and then really questions. I just want to make it clear, I think Joanne mentioned it, but the so-called 2% tax cap is only 1.22% for our district this year. It is a ridiculously low number. If you look at just the other point that I'll make is just health insurance alone is going up $19,922. That's a cost that we can't control, but that pretty much wipes out almost, or pretty good portion of what we can raise with that minimal tax increase that we're allowed to have. So we definitely need to continue to lobby our legislators to put a floor on the tax cap because it's ridiculous to expect a district to continue to be viable with that little amount of help.
I think the biggest injustice there is they tout it as a 2%, and it really could be nowhere near that.
Yeah.
I mean, we're at 1.22, and that's with front loading our capital project. If you didn't have a capital project, you'd be in a negative situation with your tax levy.
Yeah.
So it just should be, if it's 2%, it's 2%. If it's not, then, you know,
And to call it that, I
Say
think if they pushed it out there to the public as we're gonna have a levy based on inflation and, but the, we're gonna
exactly.
maybe look for 2%, but that's not gonna be the number.
Yep.
Then the public would understand that better, but to say that, years that we've been over 2% and we've been allowed to be over 2%, we've asked for more than 2%, the public has supported us, is great, but, you know, it works the other way too. People are looking at it going, wait, it's 2%, we're going at a 2.3.
That 2% shouldn't be anywhere in there.
To
Exactly.
call it that is just unfair to the public, to the districts, to the, everybody
And
involved,
mind
the
you,
students.
the only governmental entity held to that is school districts.
Yeah,
So, yep, you're 100% right.
you can argue with me on any of that.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Lisa, how many pilots do we still have in the district?
I believe we have 5.
Well, that's a lot better than it used to be.
Yes, yes, it is. And we have one that is still listed as a pilot because they have not turned over the title. They have to turn the title over to OCEDA in order to have it come back on the rolls. And they were supposed to turn the title over back in 2014. Still have not. So, yeah, I have to account
Is
for.
there anything to impel them to do so? Or, I mean, obviously we can't, but.
No, it basically comes from the county, and I can tell you that they do everything in their power to try to do that, and it's just craziness. It's just.
Why don't they just start taxing them and then, you know, put a lien on it for the taxing
Yeah.
for the property? I mean, that would be.
And there's no difference in the taxing at that point in time. They're taxed at 100%. So it really makes no difference other than it would, when they come back on the books, they spread over the rest of the tax population. So yep, it's craziness. There's no legislation or law that says that they have to turn the title over.
Yeah, and well, I found it amazing that we never even got a say in the pilots. We could go to the hearings, but we never had a say. We could just speak our piece. It was like, oh, thanks for coming, but we're gonna do this anyway.
Yeah,
That's exactly.
I always said they should do it, we're not allowed to speak, we should be at a hold harmless, we should get our full taxes and everybody else is allowed to speak, should take the cut.
I remember when I first came here, I couldn't believe, I mean, the list was like.
Remember how many it was, like,
Oh, my God, it was like 15.
yeah, I was gonna say it was up there, 17 maybe?
Yep, and
Yeah.
I was like, holy, you know, and it was, I just didn't view the district as, you sat in a commercial zone.
Mhm.
So that's why you had all those pilots. And then you have anybody who does any form of an expansion or whatever, they're gonna go after a pilot. So in other words, like McCraith or whatever. So now
Firstone Energy LLC.
Yeah.
Yep.
Burstone,
We didn't get any
they're
benefit
still on
from
the
that.
books.
Welcome.
You know, Broad Street Warehouse, I mean, you know, you kind of span out, which is why you have that fake, and I'll call it fake wealth ratio that you have. Because you have this, you know, you have commercial real estate.
Well, we're not as high as we used to be on the wealth ratio. We used to be over 0.9.
Your pilots have have come off, and that's helped that.
Seriously, I'm not kidding, am I,
No.
Lisa?
No,
And we were only second to Rome in pilots.
Yep.
Rome School District was the only one who had more pilots than New York Mills.
Including the city of Utica,
yeah,
think about that.
Yep, so we were over at 0.9. You would have thought we were a skinny Atlas or something. Any other questions for Lisa? Or Joanne?
Yeah, I just-
Or Alicia?
The SPO, is that enough for the upcoming year?
So, I spoke to Sheriff Mashel about it, because it's actually between the county and the sheriff's department. Sheriff Mashel feels that we have one more year of the 3-year commitment. And so, right now, the Village of New York Mills did offer a proposal. The deal that we're getting right now through the county is actually a lot less.
We may revisit that next year.
We probably will revisit that next year.
It just seems like it's been longer than 3 years.
So,
It seems like we've had that since you've been here.
yeah, no,
I
it's
think
right.
the first year we were on that we started the switch over. So we're just going into the finishing.
Rob seemed to think we had another year, so I'm gonna go with that.
Yeah.
I like his number.
That's okay, this is number better.
That's all we'll give him, regardless of what it, you know. He told us.
Anything else? Moving on, oh, Mrs. Hubley?
No, I'm just looking at the computer assisted instruction with the BOCES services. So that increase, I just wanted to know, that's because of the online for the K through 5th graders?
Yep, that's largely that, and then certainly some of the technology pieces, but yes, it's largely the virtual school.
Okay, so we're planning on that again next year.
Well, you know, that really depends right now.
Yeah.
What we're hoping is, with that obviously increases and we're able to have more of our kids back to school. I will say Madison Oneida BOCES, so they're just looking at all sort of proposal, and so it could be that we look between the two programs to see which is the better program for our students, but also more cost effective.
Okay, thank you.
And it could be that it may be more cost effective for us to run our own.
Right, thank you. Oops, sorry.
Anything else? Although we would be hard pressed to have Lisa or Joanne do any better job than they already did, I'm gonna ask that the board look at that further in case you come up with any other questions or concerns, and then be ready to either approve it or send them back to the drawing board at the next meeting. But give it some careful consideration. If you're ready to roll the next meeting, we can approve this budget. If you have any questions, deal with Lisa and Joanne directly. This way they're aware of it. They'll let Kristen and I know what your concerns are. Just because it's a little more expeditious to do it that way. Normally I would say call Kristen and I first, but they'll get back to us and let us know, just for time's sake. Committee reports, do we have any tonight?
Yes.
Mr. King, go ahead.
The safety committee met on 2/23. There were about 14 members of the community, including parents, people from the sheriff's office, some staff members and BOE members. The first section was about COVID safety and the plan for that, which Joanne will address later in her superintendent's report. There's also a second part about the counseling and what's going on and the actions that these partial days or weeks and things are having on our students, and that was presented by Deb Ellis and Adriana Molina, and I thought it was an excellent job. They did give me some literature, everybody there. I don't know I can get that all scanned out to everybody, but it was, kids are doing okay, but they could do better with the counseling portion of things, so we need to continue to work on the mental health portion of this program.
Thank you, Mr. King. Mrs. Albert, do you have anything for policy right now, or are you all set with this moving forward for those?
No, just a couple things. We had a couple that we reviewed that didn't have any changes, so they're just as reviewed. Would be 2002 and 2103, and then we're deleting 2104, which I think that was in your packet, marked as delete.
Mhm.
So that's it. And we have another meeting next week.
Thank you. And Mr. Carmen, you did meet with transportation, or you did?
Yeah, actually, we did have a transportation meeting February 4th. This is our last meeting, it's so intense. Decided to mention it tonight. Yeah, actually, a couple things were already discussed earlier between Dr. Shelmadine and Lisa about the vehicle updates being low bus purchases this year. Then also the radius, Dr. Shelmadine already mentioned that. Personnel, there's no updates. There was a couple driver concerns. I guess it's a loose term. Addressing about the drop-offs. Which Patty, board's gonna be looking into that a little bit more. Probably by maybe the next meeting, we'll have a little more detail on that for us. And last but not least, some promising news. There's a new DOT inspector that was a little more stringent, I guess. All the inspections passed, which is great for us, great for the kids. And that was our meeting in a nutshell.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Carmen, I appreciate it. And I know Mrs. Tubley's communication meeting had to put theirs out, and thank you for that.
Yeah, we're gonna be meeting March 30th, so we'll have an update for the next board meeting.
Okay, and Mrs. Jordan, nothing right now?
We didn't have one for February.
Kim, you have anything for me?
No, they didn't have anything.
Okay. Moving on, I need a motion for the consent agenda, business office reports, CSE reports. Can I get a motion? Motion, Mrs. King, second, Mrs. Albright. Any discussion? All in favor? So moved. Motion for approval of minutes dated February 5th and minutes dated February 11th. Can I get a motion? Motion, Mrs. Jordan, second, Mr. Carmen. Any discussion? All in favor? So moved. Old business, capital updates?
Yep, the capital project is completely approved. Building permits have come, so we're moving forward. And I don't know if we've talked about it as a whole group, but there's a way for us to, you've talked about it, right? The contract, a way for a company to come and really kind of overall look at our project and bid on it without having their state approved already. So some of those companies have come to just look at the scope. So we're making headway there as well.
Thank you, that's great news.
How long was it from initial submission?
It's actually quick.
Yeah,
I think you put it in November,
Yeah.
end of November.
yeah,
So
so
approval that quick.
That was really, it was really.
the hard part
Excellent.
was everybody at state is virtual.
Mhm.
So, and actually it probably would have been approved even a little bit quicker, except that they kept losing pieces of it.
That was unstable and then to the next person.
So, but
Oh, goodness.
all
Okay.
set now.
Moving on, personnel report. I need a motion. Motion, Mr. King, second, Mrs. Jordan. Any discussion? All in favor? So moved. If it's okay with the board, all the second reads, I'd like to take them as one motion because those are the only ones that need action. So, policy 2001, number of board members. Policy 200, qualifications and training of Board of Education members. Policy 2003, responsibilities of Board of Education members. And policy 2005, resignation, dismissal, and filling vacancies. Can I get a motion? Motion, Mrs. Albright, second, Mrs. Jerry. Any discussion? All in favor? So moved. Policies 2004, nomination and election of board members, 2100, powers and duties of Board of Education, 2101, annual reorganizational meeting, 2102, duties of the district clerk, 2103, I don't believe we need that anymore. We no longer have a district treasurer, but I'll leave that to the policy committee's discretion.
That one I just went over, we reviewed it and there were no changes. 2104 is actually being deleted, so that can come off of there.
Well, no, I was questioning whether 2103 needed to be deleted, as we don't have a treasurer anymore, we have a business officer.
Yeah, but the duties of the treasurer,
I think you want me to be both.
yeah, they're in, it's in
Yeah,
the law.
it's state law, head law. You have to have
Okay,
it.
no, just because as treasurer, I would assume we would have, she's not the treasurer anymore, but I would assume we have different job description for her, different duties.
Right, but it also encompasses the duties of
I
the
think you
treasurer.
want me to have both duties.
Yep.
Unfortunately for me.
Not for us though, but.
Yeah.
Do not delete it, is what she's saying.
I like it
Unless-
as
So like, does that mean we have to give you 2 paychecks? Okay, that's how I thought that was.
Not in the budget.
We were gonna do that, but we had to
I'd
cut
love
it.
to tell you, get rid of it, but I think, I think the uniform budget.
Yeah, okay, all right.
But the one that we do not have a tax collector, and so that, right?
Yeah, that can
So
go.
that's fine.
So we have first reads on policy 2004, 2100, 2101, 2102, 2103. You said 2104 is gone.
We have to
Um,
vote on it, though, to make it go away on policy, don't we? Just tell policy service we're getting rid of it? Okay.
Just tell them get rid of it. So we need no action except if you have feedback on that, please get that to the policy committee. We need action on the district calendar. I don't know why, because they're gonna do it anyways. So I need a motion on the district calendar for the 21-22 school year. Motion, Mr. Carmen, second, Mrs. Hubley. Any discussion about that? All in favor? So moved. Oh, you shortchanged at Christmas this year.
You know what, I do have a,
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, I just want to ask that now that it's approved, can we get this shared with the community?
We absolutely can.
Okay.
This is the BOCES calendar, it's not necessarily ours.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Well,
We
did
did
we do
follow-
something different with superintendent's days this year?
Yeah,
Different than the BOCES
last
calendar?
year we did. So this year we did the same thing as BOCES. The previous year we changed it.
Okay.
Yeah, the components generally follow their,
I remember a couple of years ago, or
Yeah,
we
it was 2
changed
years ago.
superintendent's days and we didn't have 2 before the start of school.
But so, and this year we went back to that, and probably next year we'll do the same thing. Especially given we don't know what September looks like.
That's a good point.
Juneteenth became a holiday?
Juneteenth became a holiday.
I must
Is it
have missed that.
official? Has the governor made it official yet? I didn't
So
think he
for
did.
this year, it's not necessarily official for schools, but it's considered an attendance day. So no regencies are scheduled for that day, and so the expectation would be that students would be in attendance. Many of us will probably be using doing our finals at that point. So we'll kind of see what that calendar looks like. Next year, though, it is an official holiday. There are no regencies scheduled. There's, as far as I know, no school scheduled.
I'm saying he didn't get it as a state holiday yet.
But I don't know what happens because contractually, we have an approved number of holidays. And so we don't have language yet from the state, like you're saying, that dictates.
I
what
think
that
last
is.
year they gave it 2 weeks, a week or two before the actual holiday itself, so.
No idea.
Then that would take away a day of instruction, so we need to add another day somewhere else.
No, it was figured into this, for this calendar.
Moving on. The revised budget timeline. Can I get a motion? Motion, Mr. Carmen, second, Mr. Jordan. Any discussion? All in favor? So moved. Five point 1.4. Approval of full site coordinators and inspectors.
I will have a revision on that. Sally Clark is not available, just so everybody knows there is going to be a substitution in there.
That's okay, because mine is missing
So
here.
it's mine.
Yeah, I don't have it here.
Mine is
It's
missing.
not a separate piece
No,
of paper, it's
not a
only
separate piece of
it's
paper,
part of the
it's right in your
agenda, right on the agenda.
You give us your thing.
None of mine do that.
So right here.
On the long form.
Okay, so we have a revision minus Ms.
Ms. Clark
Clark.
will be out and there will be a substitution. I believe there's going to be a gentleman named William Hall.
Do we need to approve that now, or can we wait till it's in totality?
We can approve it now. It's good with substitution.
I'm not comfortable with that,
Okay.
because I'd like to see a name there when we approve it.
Okay.
Can we
Do you
approve
want
the
to
other
approve
two
the
with
other
that?
two?
What's that?
Can we approve the other two?
We can approve the inspectors, but
Okay.
not the coordinator.
Okay.
So I need a motion to,
I'll move to approve the inspectors.
okay, can I get a second? Second, Mrs. Albright, all in favor?
All right,
So moved. Uh, 5.15, approval of combining contracts between Notre Dame and New York Mills. Can I get a motion? Motion, Mrs. Albright, second, Mrs. Jerry. Discussion?
can you talk to this a little? Or no, is it on the down low? I mean,
Well,
it's
essentially what, Notre Dame has reached out to us for an opportunity. We're right now busy trying to extend our basketball season and give our spring season time to start. So Notre Dame reached out asking to see if we had a couple of players who might want to play football for them.
Call the
In the
question?
spring?
In spring. So
Call the
now,
question?
we're not talking about fall yet.
All in favor?
Okay.
So moved. Mr. Dodge, principal's report.
Let's see, so first I'll begin with Mrs. Facci's report regarding the musical. I know she wanted me to read this, so I'll read a portion of it. The virtual streaming of the high school musical Junior will take place on March 26th and 27th. To purchase tickets, you'll be able to go to a ticketing website called Show Tix for You. That is run by a company that owns the rights for the musical. We are working with the company to get a fair and reasonable price for households to view the show. With discussion from the students and the company so far, the cost is looking like it will be about $15 plus tax for the show. This is comparable to renting a new movie on streaming device, approximately $20 for a new movie. The cost may vary a little depending on final decision of the company and our show rights that we pay for. We are going back and forth with the number at this time. So the drama club agrees that a $15 to $30 is what the parents themselves would be willing to pay. So that's kind of where they are as far as their.
Thank you. You're not going to answer this question, I think, with tax or tax exempt.
Yeah, I don't know what, because the company maybe that they're getting it from maybe
The
not.
company is charging, because they're editing and things like that from what Mia was telling me about it, yeah. So they're charging a tax on it, yeah.
I can definitely speak with Mrs. Lecchio and get an answer to you.
That's curiosity.
Yep.
That's a valid
And
question.
I did, because I asked, I said, with tax exempt, why aren't we, you have to use that? And, well, I was asking my daughter, and that this is about.
It does seem like that seems counterintuitive.
Yeah, I mean, whenever we've done a conference, we all carry our little tax exempt cards from Lisa. You know, so.
I have one in my wallet at all times.
It's a new avenue that I think, it's one of those things like we've never gone down it before, so it's kind of a learn as you go kind of opportunity.
Yeah, I was gonna ask,
Because I use tax exempt for my work too, I have parts of them.
well, and I was gonna ask, when we bought the rights to the play, wouldn't that have all been presented as far as any fees?
Ticketing is separate because that's usually done by us. They don't care how you pay for the musical, as long as you pay for it. So that's our business to collect the money and pay for it through the revenue of the tickets.
Yeah, it's separate. It's a
Well,
separate.
no, but I
entity.
meant this year because it's gonna be online, so they would charge the $15 to $30 and who, like, our, drama club doesn't get anything
Don't know.
back from that? It all goes to the,
I would think not. Because
I know I'm
think
asking
they're
you questions
getting-
that I don't
They're
know.
getting something back.
what, I'm sorry,
The drama club is getting something back.
Yes,
Oh, good.
okay. The way I heard it was that it was all going back to the company that owns the rights to the play, okay.
no, I don't believe that would be true, even though it's a separate from the school. I mean, student organizations are outside of that. I don't believe anybody would sign on to anything that wouldn't benefit the organization.
Okay.
I have a question, probably Steve would be able to answer this too. Now, they did
Can you
do.
save it for board discussion and let Mr. Dodge finish, or do you need it now?
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, it was related to. I know, we're going off on tangent, but.
I mean, I just thought if we let Mr. Dodge finish, then it just gives us more time to do it during board discussion. Is that okay with you?
Oh, yeah, that's
All right.
fine.
Thanks, Scott.
Don't forget.
I keep that reminder.
I know I would.
Write it down.
Yeah, better.
So that's why I write notes all the time.
On the elementary side, if you haven't noticed, if you go on to the Sheriff's Department Facebook page, you'll see all of our kids, a good portion of our K-6 classroom doing the pledge and stuff like that. So this is, again, our week. I think next week is another school, and then the following week we'll finish up, I think, the rest of our classrooms. But again, I happen to go with the officer to these classrooms, and the kids are really excited. They're all dressed to the nines. Some classrooms had themes, so it was really cool to see the excitement around that kind of thing. And just to kind of add on to that a little bit, I can't say enough how happy our kids are to be here every day and excited to learn and just engaged in the building. And that again, builds the teachers back up as well. So that cycle is very, very important. I can't say enough how blessed I am to be here in this building and have my kids here and see all these other kids. This is a fabulous place, and the kids are happy, and that makes all of us happy. So I just want to say that. So thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dodge. That would be you then.
All right, so the enrollment, apparently Google wanted to put an ad on there, on the original enrollment update. So you'll see, I passed that one, but Stephanie had also given you one. So our enrollment staying fairly steady at 557. We have fewer kids who are 100% remote. That mostly came about with secondary. So we're at a total of 86 students who are remote. In your packet, you saw public health emergencies, communicable disease. Effective April 1st, we needed to add a section to our safety plan that speaks specifically to communicable diseases or pandemics. So much of what you would have found in here is in our reopening plan, and it's also in our safety plan. But they wanted everything kind of isolated into its own section. It covers everything from who's essential, who has to be here, to how much PPE we need to order, and even our protocols for contact tracing and how do we return to school. So many of you have seen all of these same things that were in our reopening plan. It's just a different section. So if you have any questions, please let me know. I've given it to now the building or the district safety team as well as the board committee. So you people are the last ones to see it. So if you have any questions or concerns or need something clarified, please let me know. Thank you. The last thing I want to talk about real quick is, as you know, we're still a comprehensive support and improvement school, which means we're a target district. Much of that came about because we were a focus district. And when the new regime took over, for lack of a better term, every district that had been a focus district automatically became a target district, regardless of data, regardless of anything. So we tried to appeal it to no avail. So here we are. This is the second year of us being a target district and a comprehensive support and improvement school. And Mary and I were in a meeting with the state people on Friday, only to find out that they're going to put us in for a third year with no data, because frankly, there's no up-to-date data. So both Mary and I were pretty surprised by that, because our understanding was that this would be it. And in fact, that we were here already with outdated data because there were no 3.8 tests last year. So we're writing plans for inaccurate data. So I reached out to Dr. Kilburn, and she's going to try to coordinate a call between the Office of Accountability and State Ed and us to really talk about why we are going through this again. Because we will not have, even though we are expected to probably give 3.8 assessments this year, they're not used for accountability. New schools are going to be identified. So I don't know, and I'm just going to editorialize here, that they want to torture us one more year. I'm livid. So just know that we are working on it to try to get out from under this cloud. By all accounts, when we look at the data, we should not still be identified. We shouldn't have even had to move over from focus to target. And yet here we are. So
Opt out, the gift that keeps on giving.
yes, so my soapbox is over, but I'm pretty livid, and I'll let you know how the meeting with the state goes.
And that's just it. People have a right to be livid, because it's cost the taxpayers a great deal of additional money over the whole opt-out fiasco.
Yeah.
People have no idea how much money it's caused the district that could have went to kids.
Absolutely.
So,
That's all I have.
Stephanie,
We do not have anything from the floor, I received no correspondence.
Mr. Kerman.
Oh, okay.
He forgot.
I was going on Lisa to remind me. No, actually, I wrote down from one. Yep. No, I just wanted to clear that, air on the musical, because they did do the high school musical, oh God, I can't, years back, my oldest was in 6th grade. But once they purchase the musical rights, don't they own it? Oh, they don't. Okay.
Now, the way that works, you purchase it for a certain period of time.
Every time, okay.
And you don't even guarantee to get it if all of a sudden the musical we were doing was going to be playing at the Stanley because they had a touring company come, we could have the rights pulled days before for it to go up.
Yeah, I heard that part, but the rights thing was
Yeah.
confusing to me. Okay, thank you.
But you don't own it forever. The only exception to that I know locally was when all those years of doing Scrooge.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, the players did Scrooge for a million years. No one ever expected when they gave those rights to the players that they would do it every year for, what was it, 25, 30 years, but they did. Made piles of money. They kept players alive for years.
Yes. Thank you for clarifying that, Steve.
You're welcome.
Anything else?
I'm good, thank you.
Well, listen, I just gave you the floor. You-
That was my burning question for tonight. Minor, but.
Anybody else for the good of the order? Mrs. Jordan, you have anything?
No, I'm good.
Mrs. Hubley?
No, good.
Mr. King?
I'm just going to piggyback on what Mr. Dodge said. There was just a little thing I watched in the morning, flip back and forth between the Today Show and Good Morning America. I'm not sure which one had this, but there was a kid who was being homeschooled or remotely schooled with her mom doing flashcards with her. And they got to a flashcard that said, "You're going back to school." And the kid read the card. She's probably, I'm going to guess, about 4th grade age. Burst into tears. She was so happy that she was going back to school. I'm really, really proud of the work that people are doing here to allow us to allow our K-6 to be here all the time, to allow our 712 to be here when they can be here. I can't wait for the day when 712 can be back to where K-6 is. I know we have our limitations on size and we have our limitations on how many we can have in the building, but God, it's really great that we're able to do this, and I am so excited and proud of the work that people that are doing here to make it happen.
You know, Steve, I was gonna wait and then you just triggered something in me, thought that I was sitting here having, saying, wouldn't it be great if we could get the 96 students that are remote back into school? Because we look at our numbers, our grand total numbers, we have an enrollment of 557 children. 96 of those children are remote. 86 are out of district. I wish we could get them back, which means a grand total of K through 12 students physically in this building at any given time at full capacity is 375. I'm not a math genius, but that's the number. That's where it falls out. We need to get these kids back in school. I don't know how we do it, but you just said it yourself. You know, how happy this little girl was. And I know my niece is in a neighboring district in a kindergartner, and she was just allowed to finally go to school for the first time this year.
In March or February,
In February.
basically.
Ironic that they celebrated their 100 days of school when they haven't been physically in there, but,
The kids hopefully have done 100 days of
They
school.
really have.
but just excited because she was gonna get to meet new friends.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important. So if any of the administrators or anybody here has an idea how to get these 96 students back in the building, we're all ears.
Change state rules.
Yeah, so right now there is movement in the CDC, pushing back to the CDC about making social distance go from 6 feet to 3 feet. If that were to happen, obviously that is a game changer for us. That distinction though needs to also be made for transportation. But transportation, I think at this point would be probably the least of our worries. I think if the spacing could be 3 feet instead of 6 feet, all of our class sizes would be able to be accommodated. And we could go back to also providing our intervention services.
Wouldn't that be a beautiful thing?
It would be. So, but stay tuned on that. We haven't heard anything, but I'm guessing that things are moving kind of quickly at the state level right now, so.
Brother, just
Smoky up there.
There's no- Mrs. Albright, you have anything for the good of the order?
No, I'm all set, thank you.
Mrs. Jerry?
That's good.
Okay, that being said, we need a motion to go into executive session for the purposes of discussing negotiations, CSEA. And I need a motion, and then we need a 5-minute break, because we do. Okay, so, motion, Mrs. Hubley, second, Mrs. Jerry, all in favor? So moved. Thank you. Do we need Lisa here, or we're gonna let her go?
Very, I have no idea what I'm looking at. We were looking at something that looks foreign, because this is sort of what's foreign. I have no idea. I was like, are we supposed to be going over this?
This is hard to hear
We're
my
still-
feet.